Welcome to episode 23 of the Josh Lopez Wrestling Podcast, live here on YouTube, here on a hump day. Also, the show's live on iTunes, Stitcher, Audio Boom, wherever you get your fine podcasts from. If you guys don't want to look at our ridiculous mugs during this live broadcast, you can guys check out the audio version on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe there. All we ever ask, we don't ask for a lot. We don't have a t-shirt store. We don't have a merch stand. We don't have our own website for the show. We're not going to force you to. We should. But we don't try to force people to spend money on us. But all we ever ask is if you can leave an honest review or feedback of what the show is, what you like to see different on the show. Leave a review on iTunes, leave a rating, and tell a friend about it. If you like what we bring to the table each week, please tell a friend about this show. I think me and Adam are totally bringing something different to the table in these podcasts than you hear than most other shows. We're going to talk about that a lot at the beginning here. But before anything else, let's introduce everybody here. I am Josh Lopez. You can follow me on Twitter at WCJoshLopez. You can follow my good brother and co-host of the show, Adam Daley at AdamDaley13. What's going on, my man?
What's going on, Josh? Listen, we have a guest. You guys know when we have guests, I like to keep it short and sweet, so I hope everyone's having a good day. And let's kick it over to the man.
I don't know if you'll like this or not, but here he is, the John Cena of the JWL podcast, Eric Friedman.
No, that's a compliment, man, because I put in the work, man, you know.
I won't call you lazy, though, but you are a part-time guy on this show. So
sweet. That describes me right there.
Eric, what's going on, my man?
Not much, you know. Got a busy week. I'm off from the real world for this week, so went back to New York to visit the fam. You know, get some pizza, get a bagel. You know, but it's good to be here, and I think this might be like my fourth or fifth time on the show.
Yeah, and we've always had a great. I don't even think we've ever had a bad discussion show when you were on here. So me, you, and Adam got pretty good chemistry on here, even though you are a part timer. It's always been good times with you. Yeah.
According to Dean Ambrose, at least.
Yeah. Before we get started here, everybody, if you have any questions or comments, soliloquies, diatribes, anything you want to get off your chest, please put it in the YouTube live comment section, and we'll try to read it on there as the show goes on. We'll talk about Clash of Champions, of course, that just happened this past Sunday. I want to talk about the kind of like a not state of the business, but kind of like a generalization discussion on what Monday Night Raw is as a television show, and kind of go back to our conversation about ratings and what you need to look at when it comes to Raw in this era of wrestling. Also, we'll talk about SmackDown last night, which I thought was a really, really good show. Really set things up good for No Mercy coming up not this Sunday, but the week after. We'll talk about John Cena's Talking Smack rant, or whatever you want to call it, on Dean Ambrose last night, which I thought was kind of cool. And then we got kind of cool, a lot of shooting the shit topics to end the show. We're going to talk about Ryback possibly going to MMA, unfortunately. We got a new segment that we're going to debut here called Joker's Wild, which is going to be pretty cool. And also, if anything pops up, you know we'll talk about it as the show goes on. And at the end of the day, we are, I don't know about Freeman, but me and Adam are marks for Chris Jericho. And drink it in, man. All right, let's get this bad boy started. So
real quick.
Go, Adam.
If we could write in candidates, how many votes would Chris Jericho get?
Oh man.
Born in New York, right?
Yes.
Dual citizenship. I would vote Jericho.
Past the age of 35.
I would vote Jericho.
Vote for
Start
Jericho.
a petition.
Easy.
We were talking a little bit about this before we came on air, and we're going to talk kind of like where wrestling podcasts are in today's landscape, and it's kind of crazy. Like, not only the bevy amount of podcasts that's out there from different platforms and stuff. Like, hell, you could. It's simple to make a Google account and just do a wrestling talk show or whatever. But also at the same time, there's a lot of like BS and this other negativity and drama that also comes out with these podcasts, and it's just. You guys know my opinions on this from watching the show over the past few months, that I am not a person that wants to be surrounded by cynicism and pessimistic assholes. I'm not that guy. If I try to give a lot of wrestling show chances and listen to them, and I like to get different perspectives on the wrestling business, not only positive. I don't just watch or listen to wrestling talk shows just to hear what positives they have to hear about the show. If there's something negative, I'll listen to it. But I make a promise to myself, if I'm listening to a show and if I'm getting a condescending vibe for the people that host that show, I'm not listening to it or watching it. I just have no time for that shit. I don't think it helps the business as a whole. As a broadcaster, I usually don't throw my broadcasting background into people's faces because I'm not that type of guy. But from a general broadcasting standpoint, I feel there's a lack of creativity in the wrestling podcast game, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, you could wake up in the morning and copy and print out a bunch of thoughts from a blog for Dave Meltzer, and that's your wrestling opinion on your podcast. You could skin down every tweet Vince Russo says and defend him like he's the Messiah. It's really uncreative where we are as a wrestling podcast game, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel that there's a lot of assholes. I feel there's a lot of people that are chauvinistic and have to shove their agendas down people's throat. And if you disagree with one thing because, they got a source. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, they got that source, but they yet to reveal it. They got this backstage source in WWE. If you disagree with them, you're an asshole. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a comic book nerd. You're a mark. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Those same people are marks too at the same time. We're all marks. We said this a lot on the show. Me, Adam, Eric, anybody that's ever been on this program, with the exception of Ronnie, it's never been in the business. We never wrote a wrestling show on an independent level or on a major level. So who are we to tell people how to do their jobs? Like, we'll have our opinions as fans, but we don't act like we're above the business like a lot of these other shows. And I'm just going to be upfront with you. If you guys can agree or disagree with me, I'm sure I'll get dislikes and heat or whatever. You can send your hate tweets at WC Josh Lopez. I really don't care. But people got to call the truth the truth. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Adam or Eric may disagree with me on this point, but I really think, from a general broadcast standpoint, there's a lack of creativity when it comes to these wrestling talk shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's look. Here's one thing I want to say, that I think that it's awesome that there is this many shows, because it's showing how, as much as people are saying the business is dead or people don't care, I mean, we care enough to have all these shows. Hell, I do sometimes 6 shows a week, and I shouldn't. And I'm not going to do that as much anymore, guys. But I think that it's one of those where, if you look at it, I mean, that's a good thing when there's, when the business is exciting enough, and or I guess leaving people with such a distaste that their shows based around negativity, or then their shows based around positivity. All it's doing is helping WWE in a lot of ways, because they could just tap in, if they truly wanted to, tap into any of these shows and really get the true temperature of what the hardcore fan is really feeling, versus just quick tweets or quick whatever, hate mail that, gets sent their way, or praise that, that gets sent their way. On the flip side of it, though, I do think that, I don't know, the reason why I always do, take either like the comedy route, or just here's what I'd like to see, or I think it'd be cool to see them go this route, is because we could sit here and every single show would be the exact same. And guys, it would be, these shows are boring that way. I mean, how many times can we, Sam and I quit doing Raw review mainly because it just got to be a little somewhat boring. Because it was just like, okay, we just watched the show. We wanted, we want to talk about it. It was fun trying to put whatever, it was fun trying to put a comedy spin on it. But it was like, we don't really want to watch live. It was just too much, a lot of the complaints that people had, it wasn't making wrestling fun for us. So we knew, okay, we have to change this around a little bit. And, maybe, and we still might start, doing a review show again where it's like, something completely different, like, later in the week or something. It would never be live after the show. But it was just, we realized that just sitting there for, how people complain for it's so long, it's 3.5 hours, then don't watch it that way. And I understand that not everybody has DVR. I understand that not everybody has the internet. I understand that, but if what I don't understand is that if something is making you this miserable for 3+ hours every Monday night, when there's a million other things that, in a way that you could watch, and why are you doing it? You're doing it because you love it. You just don't like what they're doing. And listen, at the end of the day, I'm an Oakland Raiders fan. I love the Oakland Raiders. I certainly don't like what they've been doing for the past 14 years. You know what I mean? But do I watch every single game until the clock hits zero? Sometimes when we're losing by like 70. Yes, unfortunately, yes. But I just think that the business is in a state right now where and I know that we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but there's a lot of new and a lot of old going on, and I think that's okay. And I think people are so stuck in their ways of, there was a certain way that WWE was doing it, so it was very predictable, and in a way there was a quote-unquote WWE logic. So now that we don't have that, because it feels very fresh again in a lot of different areas, whether people want to admit it or not, there's a very fresh feel to WWE's brand, whether it be SmackDown, Raw, and NXT. And I think that at the end of the day, love it or hate it, you wouldn't be this invested in it if it wasn't different and change, because if you don't like the product right now, it's because you don't like the changes that were made, and that's okay. Maybe wrestling's just not for you anymore, but at the same time, with all these podcasts and stuff like that, it sucks because, yeah, absolutely, there's shows that do the business no good whatsoever, but because they kiss the right ass, they'll get all the like exclusives, or they think they have like insiders. Like, dude, I don't ever want to have an insider, like ever. I don't, because it's like, I still like watching this stuff as a fan. Like, I don't even read dirt sheets because I try to avoid having as much spoiled as possible, because I still like to enjoy it as a fan too, and I think that's the problem, is that we look at it too much as we got older, we thought we all became, I'd rather be a mark than be a wannabe expert, than be a wannabe booker. You know what I mean? And I think that everybody grew up being, growing up as marks, we all became wannabe bookers, and we all think that we really know what goes on behind closed doors of a boardroom. And I don't think that people have any clue. I don't even think that people that were in the business 15 years ago have any clue of what business is like in WWE right now. I'm not saying other professional wrestling. I'm not saying what's going on in ring. I'm not saying what's going on in storytelling. But we have to understand that there's a lot of variables on the outside from the business spectrum. It's called brand awareness in corporate America, plays a pivotal part in what WWE does with its storytelling, with its characterization, with its branding of its characters. Everything starts with the corporate dollar. And I think a lot of people just have still not understood that yet, that it is entertainment first, guys. It truly is, and if you don't like it, that's fine, but start to understand what it is, and kind of realize that this is like that 96, 97, and that's what kills me. Again, the people that changed the business for the better back in the mid-90s are the ones that are complaining the most right now. And it's just that sometimes, listen, ways have to change, and that's okay. I praise innovation. I praise something that feels different. I love the fact that SmackDown's getting as much buzz as it is. I love that Raw's still getting as much heat as it is, because really it hasn't been a bad show. Like, we'll get into all this, but I mean, that's kind of just where I'm at. But as far as where all the shows and stuff like that go, I think it's fantastic. And it's a fantastic testament to professional wrestling as a whole, independence, any other major promotion, New Japan Pro, TNA, or Ring of Honor. You know what I mean? I just think that this is a real testament to how passionate professional wrestling fans are, to where it used to be, okay, you kind of either grew out of it, or you're a couple, as Colin Coward says, booger picking nerds that live in your parents' basement or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But now it's men, it's women, it's children, it's grandparents. The spectrum that watches this program is so wide and so global that I never would, as a child, would have envisioned WWE to be this big. So,
hey Ricky, you're a co-host on the War Report, which is part of the tagmeatodate.com website and crew you guys are a part of, and a great brand that's been around for the last couple years. And you do podcasts a lot. Like we joked around earlier at the beginning of the show that you were like the John Cena of the show, but I value your opinion, brother. I do. I think you're open-minded, especially for a guy that is old school. And in a lot of ways, I'm old school too, even though I'm only 22. I respect the past, but I respect your opinion too. I want to get your opinion as a guy who's in this podcasting game. What is your observations of it as a whole? Do you think there's a lack of creativity, or do you think otherwise?
Yeah, there's definitely that. But see, the difference is, like, someone like me on the War Report, like, it's just like you guys. We talk about, the reason we did this podcast is because, well, for one, obviously we want to, get the word out for Taking Me a Date, but that's really secondary if you think about it.
Yeah. Because
we want to just have fun, talk about wrestling. The whole reason we came up with Tag Me Date in the first place was to get wrestling fans together. But yeah, we just like to have fun, shoot the breeze, and just talk about wrestling. Wrestling's been a part of my life for pretty much my whole life. I was a little kid. I was like 4. My parents asked me what kind of musical instrument I wanted to play. I said the bagpipes. And it's from Roddy Piper. Like, how else would a 4-year-old know what the hell bagpipes are, unless you're in, Ireland, or Scotland, whatever. But it's but yeah, we like to do it to have fun. That's why I want to do all these podcasts, not necessarily to get my name out or to get Tag Me Date's name out, but to have fun, to be a part of talking about wrestling. I almost feel like I can't go through my day without talking about wrestling to at least somebody,
Mm-hmm.
What, good or bad. I try not to watch the show as a cynical person, although it sometimes it's hard not to. But I've taken the approach of I'll watch something that maybe I may not agree with. I'll say, "Oh, that sucks," but move on with my life in 5 seconds. I'm not going to dwell on it.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that the streak never should have ended, but I don't bitch about it, though. I may have, like, the next day, but that's about it. After that, it was over. Especially with Warrior dying the day after, I'm like, well, that really puts things in perspective of what you should really be complaining about in life,
I guess what's odd to me, guys, is the fact that we go through this routine every time there's a pay-per-view, where, let's say, like, it's the end of a pay-per-view, and unless you, as the hardcore fans, don't get what they want in their finish of that particular pay-per-view's main event, it's off. The business sucks. They're not listening to the fans. What the fuck are they doing? I can book better. Like, it doesn't matter what finishes to any pay-per-view, especially earlier this year when Roman was main eventing most of the pay-per-views. It was always something where everybody needed to have a state of business. Oh my God, the business is going to go down the tubes. Oh, we're at record low ratings. We'll talk about that later on this show. But let me say this, at least from my point of view. I've had some other websites, some other dirt sheets ask me if I was interested in joining their site and doing like news hits instead of just doing my play-by-play articles. And I've told them in advance no, because the only reason why I do write the play-by-play articles on a dirt sheet is because it's practice for me if I wanted to become a wrestling announcer. That's the only reason I do it. I get to study the moves. I get to learn about a format of a show. I take a lot of pride in covering these shows, not just the WWE shows, but also Lucha and what I have with the CWC and Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor's got a pay-per-view on Friday, and of course TNA, the stuff with Broken Matt Hardy and all that good stuff. But as a guy like me who's a historian of the wrestling business, and I just want to be in the business as an announcer, I take pride in doing these articles. And yeah, you know, the funny thing about this is that people will call you a hack journalist. Yeah, I never considered myself a journalist. What am I? I'm like basically the wrestling version of a guy or the woman in the court that's typing out everything that's happening in the courtroom conversation. That's all I am at the end of the day. I'm not saying, oh, according to my sources, this jabroni says this. Like I'm not digging for dirt. I'm not digging for clickbait shit. I'm not copying and pasting like everybody else does. But at the same time, just because I'm doing play-by-play articles doesn't mean I don't value the point of journalism in this field, because yeah, I think journalism as a whole, not just wrestling, is down the tubes. I mean, it's come to the point where it's sports or politics or whatever, people just come up with shit to just say just for the sake of hits. It's like you're not getting authentic opinions anymore. You're not getting authentic reporting. We can talk about this till the cows come home, but I guess at least from my point of view, like I feel like it's just a disservice to the fans when you have to come on these shows and just come up with opinions that are not even your own. Like, just because Vince Russo doesn't like something on Raw doesn't mean that's not good. Just because Taz has a disagreement on how this character was presented on SmackDown doesn't mean that's right. I just don't get why. And as fans, we do this to ourselves as well. Just because I put something out there on social media doesn't mean you have to respond to me. And if you're going to try to insult me on social media, don't be surprised if I respond back, because I'm not a pushover. Like, I for example, on Monday, I said I liked Cesaro and Sheamus as a tag team because I think it's something different and Raw needs more tag teams on their division. And I was like, what the fuck you're talking about? Just shut up.
Actually, we'll get into that, but I kind of dig them as a tag team too. I was surprised, but that's something we'll talk about after, you know. But I you know what? It's again, Josh. It's always about perspective, and I want to put something in perspective. Like, we always do this thing where they're not listening to the fans, and if you really look at what they're doing right now, in a lot of ways they're listening to the fans. Now, whether they're giving you what you want or not, that's a completely different story. And they don't have to give you what you want, because ultimately a lot of times waiting for the payoff of what you want is much greater, i.e. what happened when they listened to the fans and put the title on Dean Ambrose. It didn't get us too far. But, like, you know, we always want to reference, and it's funny because even the CM Punk haters will reference CM Punk in this, because it was Punk and it was Daniel Bryan were the two that was like, okay, I get it, but they were kind of like the exceptions to the rule. You know what I mean? We're not always going to be right with quote unquote what the fans want. And on the flip side of it, whatever happened to, like, we used to be able to, when we were little kids and we would watch this programming, as it is programming, this show, this long form comic book, we would watch and we would know to wait. And we would know that, you know what, maybe it wasn't happening now, but we knew that it was going to be down the road. So we could wait and we could wait. Yeah. And I just want to put it in perspective. Like, if there's, you know, to say the outlets aren't listening to the fans. My favorite show on television is Gotham, and they introduced the prototype, or the proto Joker, Jerome, in season 1. He's not going to be actually Joker until season 4. They're in the beginning of season 3 now. Fans are clamoring for this character. Cameron Monaghan from Shameless is the actor who's playing him. And, I mean, fans are just, like, are at a frenzy. Like, they really want this character. They really want this character. So next year, when we finally get this character, and they can devote an entire season probably to this character, isn't it so much more, it's worth the payoff because it's a greater payoff versus having somebody like, say, when we rushed Dean Ambrose into championship and he kind of floundered with his first run. And again, I always say first runs don't mean anything. They're litmus tests. It's a great barometer just to see. But I think sometimes we got to remember that just because it's what the fans want doesn't mean it's best for business. And I know people don't like that, but there is a business side that none of you understand, that I don't understand, that that people there don't quite understand yet. It's a unique world where things are flipping. It's more about social media penetration. It's more about subscriptions on Hulu and YouTube and Facebook. And that's why they plug things like, this is how many Facebook likes we have more than the Olympics, the NFL, or Twitter followers or Instagram followers, or those things matter. That's brand recognition. Yeah. Ratings are fine. But if on social media outlets your brand can outdo the NFL King of America, you're doing something pretty special. Love them or hate them.
This is a good segue for Clash of Champions because, again, it's another pay-per-view where you should – I don't like looking at shows as A shows or B shows, but I do understand the point of having shows in between that are plot points that build to the big events. Like, I know back in the day that a show like No Way Out was kind of like a little barometer thing for the SmackDown programs heading into WrestleMania when the original brand was around. Like, I knew, even recently, I knew that, Payback or Battleground was shows that were just trying to end grudge feuds, but it's also leading towards a bigger thing towards SummerSlam. So when you look at shows like Clash of Champions, was it the best pay-per-view of the year? No. I wasn't expecting it to be the best pay-per-view of the year, but it was the first Raw pay-per-view in this new regime we got here with this split. And I think the bigger picture we're going here is to Survivor Series. Obviously, Hell in a Cell is next in October, but we got to understand where we are right now. We got 2 shows a month. Not every single month because there's not 2 shows in November, which I kind of like that, by the way. You kind of have the in-between months with the 2 separate shows, but you have the one, everybody's there for the whole show. I do like that format. But I like Clash of Champions. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I feel like people are not going to give Raw a chance, and we'll talk about this later on throughout the show, but nobody wants to give Raw a chance, and it's it's always the same old, but honestly, it is what it is when you still have Michael Cole on commentary. That's the same vibe you're going to get every show on Monday Night Raw. I'm sorry. That's the same vibe you're going to get. No matter what additions you have to it, it's always going to feel the same when you have the same narrators.
But thank God for Corey Graves, though.
I'm not knocking Corey Graves. He's the man. I love him. He's an amazing.
Right, I'm saying that saves it a little from Michael Cole taking over the whole thing.
I know. I guess my thing is the fact that everybody's talking about how Raw feels the same, and I know a lot of people are hyping SmackDown, as they should. SmackDown, it's been an amazing show, and I thought SmackDown was better than Raw even before the split happened in July. So, my thing is people have come complacent with, okay, here's the Monday Night Raw show. We have Michael Cole there. He doesn't have as much energy as he did in the early 2000s. He's kind of like the corporate talking head throughout the show where he's going to plug the things. He's not going to call most of the action. Byron Saxton, we don't need to talk about that. He has some comments here and there, but I feel bad for the guy. If you need to have a commentator out there just to talk shit to the guy and not even value his opinion, then why are you out there in the first place? You know what I mean? I understand that Sax is trying to play the babyface former wrestler role, but what just to be out there so Cole and Corey Graves could throw out passive aggressive comments at his way the entire broadcast? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Saxton looks so uncomfortable every time they cut to like the one camera angle I don't like that Raw does is with the announce table where it is now, how they always have to, they stand up with the table behind them and they're like kind of give the synopsis or whether they're doing a show reset or whether just where they're with the announce team in front of them. It just always seems like Saxton's kind of like Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights, like where he doesn't know where to put his hands for the first time, where like he's Ricky Bobby, like I just don't know what to do with my hands. It seems like he's always frozen and like really uncomfortable. But it doesn't look like a natural camera angle either. That's the one thing I want to say that I don't, and I know that it's the complete nitpicking of something, but I just think that maybe we're ingrained so much in seeing announcers behind the table or whatever the case may be. The only one that it seems natural with it is Graves. Yes. I'll admit, Graves is the only one. Now, with your Michael Cole point, Josh, I think I agree in a lot of ways. But I think as we dig into this more, I think it's important to keep Cole on Raw for the reasons that we'll talk about when we talk about those shows. Mm-hmm. Foreshadowing.
Yep. Brother Eric, let me correct that. Brother Michael, what stood out from you from Clash of Champions this Sunday?
The Sheamus Cesaro match itself, up until the ending, which I didn't necessarily agree with, but the match itself was great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very hard hitting and people could say what they want about Sheamus, but he brought it just as much as Cesaro did. The Cruiserweight match I enjoyed. I'm really happy for both guys, especially the Brian Kendrick, because I've just been a big fan of his for a long time. Just to see him kind of have that little comeback thing, and maybe the exchange was training Eva Marie. Maybe that was the
show was. That man deserves a gold medal for that.
we discussed this on the War Report last night. We're thinking maybe Kendrick was just so high at the time that he's like, yeah, okay, I'll train her.
I think he probably wasn't high, and then got home and went, "Oh shit, what did I do?"
Kendrick probably deserves like a wrestling Nobel Peace Award for that.
He'll be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he will.
I don't know. I mean, the show was okay. It wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't. And it's like you said, I wasn't expecting it to be the greatest either.
And you can't expect WrestleMania or SummerSlam with every pay-per-view you have. No, if you really compare the pay-per-views we have right now, like the ones I've been watching recently on the network, like Over the Edge and Breakdown and Rock Bottom, those pay-per-views are absolute dog shit. I don't want to hear that crap. The Attitude Era pay-per-views were so much better. Shut the fuck up. Like, one match on the show was good at least. And I'd give it average at that point. Go ahead, Adam.
The problem.
No, go ahead, E.
Go ahead, E.
Okay, thank you. The problem that happened really is that, and this is, I could go back to all the way back when Nitro was first starting to really hit its stride, in like the mid '90s, where they're showing too much. Like you're getting, in the early days, you didn't see all your favorite superstars all the time.
Yeah.
Then they started to have all these shows, and then like even on Raw and SmackDown, you're having like your main event caliber things that should be on pay-per-views on Raw all the time. It's like your expectations kind of soar a little bit, and then so you're disappointed when something doesn't go the way you think it should.
Well, like right now. Go ahead, Adam. My bad.
Right now, in a way, Rusev and Roman Reigns are kind of doing a best of 7 in their own way, aren't they? They're just not calling it a best of 7. I mean, we've seen them wrestle how many times now? It feels like it's already been 5. I don't know how many it's really been, but it feels like it's been 5 matches already. I don't know.
Well, I think with the Roman and Rusev thing, it was because that really long gap with the vacation that came out of nowhere with Rusev and Lana. I get what you say. They had that like one match before SummerSlam, and then it was just a brawl. But like I see where you're coming from, where like you're having like pay-per-view matches on weekly TVs, but at the same point, these are we as fans are blamed for it because we want squash matches, and yet when Bailey has a squash match against a random girl on Raw on Monday, people are saying that's filler. So you got to make up your mind. Do you want hard-hitting multiple segment matches on TV each week, or do you want squash matches? You got to make up your mind. or we're going to go back to the thing where we're going to fight the in-between guys, and everybody wants to go back to the 50-50 booking conversation. So you got 3 different like parameters you got to deal with here when it comes to the weekly television shows. Do you want these TV shows where you just want the guys cutting promos the entire show and building towards the next pay-per-view, or do you want at least some freaking wrestling on a wrestling show? Because unless it's squash matches, we're either going to have 50-50 booking or pay-per-view matches on television.
I'll be honest, here's what I do. I think that, and this goes back to Josh, this goes back to the oversaturation discussion that we had a couple weeks ago. I'll loop it back in. And Eric, I agree in a way that I think that one of the biggest things that can happen is that if we see like Dean Ambrose's turnbuckle lariat or whatever, it drives me nuts. But it's because we see it how many times a week, you know what I mean? So, and so I think for me, yeah, but I was gonna say for me, how we get through Raw and SmackDown as quick as we do, I miss those old days of. If I might only see Mr. Perfect wrestle once a month, and when I got to see him wrestle, and it was on a Sunday Morning Superstars or Saturday Morning Superstars or whatever, but when you finally got to see him beat like whoever, like the Honky Tonk Man that day or whatever, it was just like, oh, cool, But like, for me, it's I don't want to say that the matches aren't important every week because I understand that they are, but a lot of times, at least on Raw. SmackDown, I'm more invested in the matches because they feel fresh, they feel new. On Raw, I know there's an old template that's going to get back to the whole SmackDown and Raw thing, but right now, I don't feel the need to watch every match. I feel like if it's something we haven't seen before, I'll make sure I check it out. If it seems like something like, okay, but I don't – I think a lot of people that if you might skip through matches a little bit instead of just sitting there and like – if your biggest complaint is I don't want to see the same matches over and over again, which started to become one of our complaints, it was like, okay, then let's just no disrespect to the men and women competing, and typically it's the men's matches, the women's matches we actually watch in full because they're doing a hell of a job. Good job, ladies. But it's okay to fast forward through half the match if you have it on DVR. You're not contractually obligated to watch the entire match. You can get up and use the restroom, go make yourself some nachos. You can come back in with some new energy. Maybe you need to grab a beer or whatever but even with the pay-per-view though on Sunday, like that, I wanted to bring up real quick too. You got to remember, guys, that like now we're watching pay-per-views on nights when we have football in America here. So we're watching, there's people. Imagine if it was this week. You'd have a game at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. Then you'd have your 1 o'clock games. Then your 4 o'clock games. And then you would go into a pay-per-view if there was a pay-per-view this weekend. But last week, I don't typically watch 2 games, but I go and watch the Steelers over at my dad's place for him just because he's a big Steelers fan and it makes me sick. But I watched the Raiders and then the Steeler game and then the pay-per-view, and I don't watch TV like that. Like I brought this up yesterday on warm-up, but it's a long day. It's a long day. So by the end of the pay-per-view, whether or not the quality of the pay-per-view or not, you're kind of exhausted. It's, you know what I mean? Because it's an exhausting day, whether we want to admit it or not. We're checking fantasy football scores all day. You're constantly on Twitter. You're constantly doing this. It's a weird day where it seems like you're doing nothing, but you're doing a lot. So when the pay-per-view finally hits, you're actually more exhausted and cynical than what you typically would be during a summertime pay-per-view or an early spring pay-per-view. And I think that, and I know it sounds like I'm making an excuse, but it's absolutely not. I don't, at least once now that I'm in my mid-30s and, I have adulting to do where it's called like parenting and being a husband and, you know what I mean? And like doing some other things. That's a long day for me, man. So, but it still kept me up. It still kept me entertained. And I'll admit, I don't know if I was watching anything else on a Sunday night, I would have been totally gassed.
Go ahead, Eric.
I had a theory about how maybe they should do like these so-called perceived be pay-per-views. Kind of go back to like the in-your-house format where it's like a quick 2-hour show, because both, especially on the months that there's 2 in the same month, like 2 weeks apart, and there's not much time for build-up, seemingly.
Yeah.
Almost do it like that where it's, just a quick 2-hour show. I mean, because if you recall, Backlash ended like way before the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, Backlash had the NXT like Beast in the East like time formats,
which is fine, but it's fine now because the network exists.
Yeah.
But if you are paying for that, for instance, like $50 or whatever the pay-per-views were before I got the network, if you were paying that and the show ended like 40 minutes before the 3-hour mark, you'd be pissed off.
Oh, you know what? Here's the interesting though. Yeah, I understand that there's time that goes into this thing. I understand that. I agree where you guys come from with that. But look at this. Let's say like you are a hardcore fan and you can't get enough of wrestling. You're getting, at least with the split now, you're getting at least 2 pay-per-views for $10. Like, think about that if you had that like 5 or 10 years ago. $5 for a pay-per-view when he had like Eddie and Benoit and those guys still around. That's a fucking snag, bro.
I have friends that were paying like the money, the amount of money it costs for pay-per-views every single pay-per-view. Yeah. And like I'm talking like during when there was WWE, WCW, and ECW. I mean, shit, that's paying for like that's 24. That's like 30 pay-per-views.
Yeah,
in a year.
And you know what? I would you guys be opposed to this just as a random outside the box idea? We're so ingrained now that wrestling pay-per-views have to be on Sundays. They have to be on Sundays. What if they started putting these brand exclusive pay-per-views on Saturday nights, like non-UFC pay-per-view Saturday nights, so that it would almost give it like that. Like you guys said, almost like I don't want to say Saturday Night Main Event or an in your house type feel, but it would. Do you think it would breathe new life into these pay-per-views? Because it would. I honestly feel like that the Sunday night slot. I know it's traditional. I know it's what we've always done. I don't, and I think it would still work for like the Big Five. I would be open to a Saturday night deal because I think that who's watching wrestling now, and I don't think it's like the old days where it's like everybody's out on a Saturday night getting all liquored up. Like that's not the wrestling fan anymore. You know what I mean? It's so diverse with the network. You can watch it at any time. You could still watch it the next day, first thing in the morning. So if you like watching it on a Sunday, hell, you have all day long to watch it at your leisure. So. I don't know. Is that something, or do you guys think that it's always going to be that set in stone on Sunday style, and that's what we're stuck with?
I got an idea. Maybe because I feel SmackDown's like the old school show. Like I would have the SmackDown like exclusive shows on Saturday morning or like early afternoon. Like the SmackDown shows like early morning, like back in the day, and then you would have Raw on the Saturday night actually, or maybe even a Friday night. If nothing's going on. I don't know about Fridays, but hey, Ring of Honor pulls it off on Friday and they get a lot of buzz coming out of their pay-per-view, so it seems to work out for them. That's not a bad idea. Eric, how about you?
Yeah, I think that a format change could be I don't think they're necessarily set in stone with the way they have it right now. I think they're open-minded and they're open to change. But that's not a bad idea. I mean, maybe you can keep it on Sundays if you have to, like for the big ones, like the main ones, WrestleMania, Rumble, SummerSlam, that type of thing. But the other ones, I think a change, it's like Sheryl Crow says, a change could do you good.
That's great.
Thank you for the first ever Sheryl Crow reference on this. You, sir, have made the list. You've made the list.
I'm glad I could provide that for you, but no, that's a pretty good idea. I mean, shit, remember the old days of Survivor Series where it was a Thanksgiving night tradition? Like, that was pretty cool. I mean, I was a little kid, and I would look forward to those. Like, I don't think I saw all of them as a kid, but still, it was something.
I don't think I was born. They had
you might not have been, but it was just kind of cool. Like, with the exception of stuff like the gobbledygook or whatever, But, and that's actually a good segue for me because I was thinking, you did mention Survivor Series earlier, and I'm thinking I'm wondering what kind of format they would do for Survivor Series this year now that the split is back. And I go back to the 1990 Survivor Series where they had all the heel survivors versus all the face survivors in an ultimate survivor match, which was awesome. I mean, you know, you have Hogan and Warrior standing tall at the end, which, Adam, you may or may not like, whatever. But
nope.
Still, though, for that time frame, and you understand that time frame, but that's what was cool about it. You had so I almost think they could do a similar thing where you have just specific Raw Survivor matches and specific SmackDown Survivor matches, and the SmackDown Survivors meet the Raw Survivor matches, and then you kind of combine the bragging rights thing like they used to have. Instead of having that its own separate pay-per-view, the ending of Survivor Series could be the bragging rights. So, you know.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually, Eric. Here's the thing, though. Like, going back to Survivor Series, it's going to be interesting since it's going to be in Toronto this year. They haven't done a live WWE pay-per-view in Toronto in years. At least, a major one. I know they had Roadblock last year, but Survivor Series is going to be a big deal in Canada, and I feel like they're going to go big with the Raw and SmackDown thing. But here's the thing, going back to Clash of Champions, so everybody's like, oh man, the club is buried. Oh, what is going to happen in the mid-card scene in SmackDown besides Miz and Dolph Ziggler? Those guys are going to be clumped into a Survivor Series match. You're not going to get an IC title match. You're not going to get a U.S. title match at Survivor Series. You're probably going to get more tag team elimination matches than you've been getting for the last 5 to 10 years, be honest with you. Let me list off a couple names. Baron Corbin, Survivor Series elimination match. Apollo Crews, Survivor Series elimination match. I'll tell you right now, they're going to have a conflict of interest with Miz and Daniel Bryan. That's perfectly fine. But Miz is leading Team SmackDown in a Survivor Series elimination match. I can see it a mile away. And also, the New Day's going to try to break Demolition's tag team record, but they're going to be in a elimination match in Survivor Series. You're not going to get title matches. What title matches are you going to get besides the women, the Universal title, and the WWE World Championship? What, a cruiserweight match? That's fine. It's not a big deal. But for those who are worried about the where Enzo and Cass are going, or the club, or New Day, or whatever, those guys are going to be lumped into freaking Survivor Series matches.
Well, then here's the thing too. Just why is it now that anytime that just because they don't have something for those characters right now, why is that they're getting buried? It just means that they're just not in the spotlight for a couple weeks, and then they're going to be back into a fresh storyline. They're going from one story. It's a transition from one to another. It's okay. That's not being buried. It's called transitioning or spinning. It's fine. I don't. We're just so again, and it's because people have been, and Josh, to me, it's because people don't like to be proven wrong. It's the I'm always right society. It's we're the chest beaters. We're like gorillas. We're like Harambe, and we're all saying that we're right, and we can never be wrong. And WWE keeps proving a lot of people wrong with the outcomes of their pay-per-views. Really, in a way, I think just to piss everybody off, and I think it's brilliant. I don't know. I love the trolling that's going on with them right now, but
yes.
I don't know, man. I just think again, it goes down to I think a lot of people for the longest time remained wrestling fans because they felt like, well, I really know this business, and I really know what goes on, and I really know I could be a booker, and I should be running that, and my friends tell me that I should be doing it. The game has changed. It's different. It's totally different. So now that the game is different, you don't know it all. It's not predictable. And when you go on your shows and run your fat mouth and you have to eat crow and you're disgusted at eating crow, you refuse to eat the crow. So you spin it into something where it's it's so terrible. I love eating crow. When WWE pulls the rug out from underneath me, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I love popping. I love surprises in wrestling still. But I think that other people have fallen in love with the idea of the business, not the business itself anymore.
Going back to the unpredictability thing, you want to talk about what's unpredictable, whether people like the finish or not, was the Sheamus Cesaro thing. Because either two things were happening. A, Sheamus would have won, and we're going to go back to the Cesaro is buried narrative. Cesaro wins. He's going to go after a U.S. title or world title, and nobody's going to care about the program, unfortunately. So the fact that the guys are tag teams coming out of this feud, and I hear a show saying, "Oh, we gotta buy in. We gotta buy in. Oh, Sheamus and Cesaro are the losers from this series." Yeah, you haven't seen what they can do as a tag team. It hasn't even been a month since they've been a tag team. I honestly feel that Raw's tag team division, with the exception of New Day, Enzo, and Cass in the Club, is wearing thin, just like the women's side on Raw. Okay, you have Bayley, Sasha, and Charlotte. Okay, where's everybody else? I know Nia Jax is being built up right now, but Alicia Fox is on her way out. She's not going to be in the company that much longer. Summer Rae is injured. Paige is injured. She's nowhere to be found. Going back to the tag division, okay, I feel like Sheamus and Cesaro are going to be a good tag team, and it is unpredictable. Okay, would I like to see Cesaro on SmackDown? Sure, eventually. But I understand that Cesaro is not going to be a main eventer in WrestleMania. If you haven't figured that out by the last couple of years, you're just being delusional at this point. It's just not going to happen.
I think Sheamus could really bring some charisma out of Cesaro too. And I'm not saying that he's not charismatic, but there's obviously he just needs maybe work on, he just needs polished a little bit. That's it. You know, and it's not the accent. It's not that he's not connecting. It's not, listen, it's not any of the excuses that people are making or trying to like say that's the reason. It just seems like maybe sometimes he gets fumbled up or nervous. I do it every week. The reason why I talk 8 million miles an hour, it's because I always joke, it's anxiety, man. So my motor's constantly going, you know. I think Sheamus kind of, I don't want to say taking him under his wing, but if this is something that they're going to do either short-term and or long-term, I think this is a brilliant move because Sheamus came in from a different country, from a different, you know what I mean, to an American company. We always forget that these are variables when it comes, you know, when it comes to WWE. So we're still waiting for our first ever British champion, world champion in WWE. You know, think about that, guys. So I don't know. I just think it's a good move, and I liked it. I liked the fact I was actually kind of so, Josh, you know, I was so out of the Sheamus. I tapped out. I was like, it's just, I don't care. And then when they tried, I went, they're gonna make them. It clicked instantly. It was like, this is good. Like this is, and I liked it. The one thing that I really, I guess, appreciated out of the whole thing was, and this is why I like when people do take to Twitter, and you know, this is why I do praise criticism too. I love the fact that it seemed like everybody was, even though they didn't, like a lot of people didn't see what was going to happen the next day with the tag team or whether you like the tag team or not. A lot of people were showing that they do care about not only Cesaro, but Sheamus too. And I feel like Sheamus is one of the guys that's always overlooked. He's underappreciated. He's so good at what he does. And like, we really undervalue the performer that he is. And I think this is going to be a good way for him to kind of like get back. I don't want to say in good graces with fans or whatever, but like, cause he doesn't need that, but at least fans will start to appreciate him again. Like fans started to appreciate John Cena again, you know? So it was good to see though. Like I always look for those moments where it's like, oh shit. Okay. You know, whether it's like, no matter how anyone was like kind of saying it, everybody was kind of like, are you kidding me? It was a draw. These men deserve better. Like, come on. Like, you know, and it was really, I don't know. It was just, for me, it was heartwarming for a change to see people rally behind two talents instead of kind of like shooting arrows at them.
Go ahead, Eric.
You know, Sheamus, to his favor, is that he was so good in his role for a time that he made people want to see Roman Reigns succeed. I know it was short-lived, but still, it was really, for that period of time, like I'm talking TLC and the night after specifically, Roman Reigns really shined, and it was definitely because of, I mean, not all because of Sheamus, but Sheamus definitely had a big part in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's because, Sheamus, I mean, I don't know. For me, it was almost like, I mean, I had no problem with Roman Reigns, nor have I ever. I mean, his booking has been questionable, I'll admit that, but I was never one of those people that just bashed him for no reason or just hated, But with that being said, I think I was like, Sheamus is champion, like, when Sheamus won Money in the Bank, that was kind of out of the blue to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody expected that. And then he's cashed in, and I'm like, oh, Sheamus, really? I think a lot of people, in many ways, probably were just so disinterested in Sheamus as champion that they would have taken anybody, and therefore Reigns. But I think he did make Reigns succeed.
I agree with you. I really do. I don't know if Sheamus will get to this point, but like, let's say like another guy that was kind of taken for granted for how good he was as a heel. Look at a guy like Miz and how much reception the guy has been getting over the past couple months. Now, yeah, he's been like booked into matches with guys like AJ Styles and the 4-way match in Extreme Rules a couple months ago, but Miz was one of those other guys who are like, oh, anybody but him. Why is he always getting opportunities? Like, I wonder if that's going to happen with Sheamus or not. Well, that's a matter of we'll see down the road. But I agree with you. Sheamus may be one of the most underrated wrestlers in all of wrestling, not just in the company right now.
It's funny you mentioned the Miz too, because I'll be honest, and Adam knows this. I'm not a Miz fan. Never was. I don't know if I ever will be. However, with that being said, that promo he cut on
SmackDown, that's
Smack a few weeks back, and the role he's been on lately, like that's like the most passion that I've ever seen out of anybody before. I mean, especially Miz, and it was refreshing to see. Like Maurice didn't say a word, nor should she, because she's awful. But she's nice to look at. She's nice to look at, but she's terrible on the mic. I'm just gonna say it anyway. But Miz is like, when they let him be, see, I think that's the key. You need to have things where fans think, oh, was this real or was that not? You know?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of that work shoot thing works for some reason, and people like that. But I think it also goes to the fact that I think things are still a little too scripted, and when you let them get off a little bit and do their own thing, which I think they let the Miz do, then you're going to get gold. I mean, like Ziggler cut like a pretty good one recently also.
Yeah.
That was kind of in the same vein. So and Cena's been really on point since he came back.
Yeah. Here's my thing, though. When it comes to like the scripted promos thing, I think there's a misperception that unless you are having free reign to cut promos, that means, oh, you have to swear or be super edgy with your promos. I think that's a misperception. Like, if you can't tell a good story without cursing or cutting yourself up or doing something dumb like Ric Flair would do in Nitro before WCW went out of business, you're not a good storyteller. It's that simple. I think Bray gets a lot of freedom in his own promos, where people believe it or not. Maybe it's because people don't understand what the fuck he's talking about. But like, I don't know. I feel like the whole scripted promo thing is kind of like misconstrued because people feel like unless you're cutting promos like Steve Austin, oh, you're just being scripted. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right, though. Unscripted doesn't necessarily mean you have to curse and do all that. And you're right. If you have to rely on that kind of stuff, then you're not that good.
I think the best promos are the ones where that there's like 3 or 4 bullet points that you absolutely have to hit for storyline purposes.
Yep.
But how to organically flow off of those and connect with the crowd. To me, those are the best ones because those are the ones that feel the most organic, the most natural, because that they're there for a purpose. Listen, Paul Heyman on Austin's podcast, it was promo 101. You know what I mean? Why am I here? Who am I? Why am I here? And when is this all taking place? Basically, you have to sell tickets, you have to sell the idea of the match, and you have to sell yourself. And at the end of the day, if you know that there's like 4 points, and even if there's like 4 digs on either the character or the storyline or whatever the case may be, if you can hit those 4 but have like a little bit, but still go a little loose leaf, if you will, that is to me when wrestling is at its best. Because then I don't want this to be let's call it like it is. It's sports entertainment. So I want you to be, do I want the best athletes? Absolutely. But I want the most creative athletes too. I don't want you to be one-dimensional. We don't want that anymore. You know what I mean? We don't want the guys that are all creativity but no substance in ring. And we don't want people that are all in ring with no creative substance. I want to see the men and women that have truly been inspired by this business, that are truly creative people. Like you guys look like Xavier. That's why I love Xavier Woods so much. That you know that he's such a creative dude, such a charismatic dude, and he can go in the ring. I know that's a random example, but I guess just for he's one that people should pay more attention to, I think, when it comes to stuff like that.
I also think a guy like Kevin Owens, with the way he uses his wit as a heel, his sarcastic tones. I saw somebody the other day say that Kevin Owens is being scripted. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And if you want to look at promos, if you want to see how an effective promo is in wrestling today, look what Chris Jericho's doing. And he's an old guy. He's a legend. He's a veteran guy. But if you want to look at a heel promo in today's wrestling, either from a comedy perspective or even a serious tone, you got to look at what Chris Jericho's doing.
Jericho
right now.
keeps reinventing the promo. Like,
absolutely, yep.
Crazy. But like, if you want to go like to a guy that was a really good promo cutter, Jake the Snake Roberts, because he was so like he was very quiet, you know, when he spoke, but you were hanging on to every word. You didn't have to yell. You didn't have to be like Hogan and Warrior. I mean, that was their thing, and it worked for them. You know, Warrior talking about God knows what, and Hogan, you know, doing somewhat similar. Even Savage was like very erratic, but Savage could kind of like calm it down too. Savage could be quiet and be loud in the same promo, and it was awesome. But Jake was like, you were hanging on to every word. Arn Anderson was like that too, in a way.
Yeah.
Where it was simple and effective, and he didn't have to yell. But he got his point across. Or someone like Dusty Rhodes, who was like so charismatic that even with the polka dots, it didn't matter. He was still Dusty Rhodes, and you know.
You know, the sad thing about this is the last thing we'll talk about the promos, and we'll move on. Like, people like to compare Ambrose to Brian Pillman, but Ambrose's like craziness or wackiness on his promos are forced, as opposed to Brian Pillman, which was genuine because the guy was a nut job. In the true sense of the word. I think maybe it would have been different if Ambrose was a bad guy, and we talked about that over the last couple of weeks, me and Adam. But like, here's another thing that I feel is kind of like overdone now in wrestling today. Here's another thing: if you need to rely on cursing or cutting yourself up or being edgy or even talking about how you're being booked on a wrestling show, you're uncreative too at the same time. Like the pipe bomb, the pipe bomb shell, the whatever other pipe bombs we want to be throwing on air. Like, okay, you want to air your grievances, that's perfectly fine, but at least try to make it different instead of going with the same cadence that Punk did. That's all I ask. As a Punk fan, I feel there's too many shoot promos that sound exactly the same. It's not making me feel sorry for that person.
I don't know. I mean, I think Miz's felt a lot different. I think a lot of them do, because anytime you are going to voice grievances about a company, it's going to kind of sound carbon copy. Because really, we could say that Punk wasn't even the first in WWE to do it on a live camera.
Yeah.
It's just that his was a little more effective than others. You know, just the verbiage he used and different things like that. So, I don't know. I think it's just we're still in the honeymoon phase with the pipe bomb, which, guys, as a Punk fan, wasn't even his best promo. I don't even know if it was in his top 5. But I think that there's always going to be some sort of similarities, though, because otherwise, if you didn't have grievances or frustrations, you wouldn't be speaking out. You know what I mean? So, of course, and it's always going to seem like, well, it's this person against the company, and it's always going to be polarizing. And I make no mistake about it. I do always side. No, I don't want to say side because I don't want to take sides, but I do applaud anybody who leaves the company and tries to make the company a better place for those underneath, whether it's fair or foul. You know, and I think there's good ways of doing it and bad ways of doing it. To me, I love how Cody Rhodes left the company. I think that he's been nothing but a class act. He's addressed some issues, but he's done it in such a tasteful way and such. I mean, I think it really shows the man that Cody Rhodes is. So, but there's a lot of guys. That's why I even defend Ryback's weird, strange, bizarre creature of a human being. If I don't know, I think maybe he really was a robot. Like I used to run with the joke that like I pretended Ryback when he first debuted was just a cyborg, and it made him so much better to me. For it was just okay, whatever, dude's a robot, ha ha ha, it's funny. And then they made him talk, and I went, oh my god, he just sounds like a caveman. So now I'm going back to thinking that Ryback might actually be a robot, because that's the only way any of these decisions can be excusable.
I want to move on to Raw really quick, but this is a couple things for Clash Champions that I forgot to mention. I agree with you, brother Eric. Brother Michael. I love the stuff with Perkins and Kendrick, especially the headbutt after. It's kind of cool that the Cruiserweights are actually having their own story that's going on, not just the matches and stuff. I love the women's match. I thought Charlotte was the MVP of Clash of Champions this past Sunday. I thought she stood out the most out of everybody this past Sunday night. Sasha doesn't need it. Bailey doesn't need it. Obviously, talking about plot points, obviously we're going to probably go with Sasha and Charlotte in the cell in Boston. So good for the women. They got a lot of time. Which is really, really cool. Roman's the U.S. champion. Hey, everybody got what they wanted. He's not in the world title picture anymore. So
hopefully this will shut people up for a little bit.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I like both Roman and Rusev. It's kind of a different old school style that you don't get a lot today. And just because you got two brutes doesn't mean they can't work or they're boring, you know what I mean? Just because you're working on a body in 2060 doesn't make it boring. Like the way like Raw started on Monday night, everybody like, oh, this is so slow, and why are you working a body? Okay, just because Roman's not doing a springboard 450 splash doesn't mean he can't work. Like seriously, shut the fuck up.
It's funny. You go back to look at 2012 and the reason I say that is because you had Big Show and Sheamus for some reason clicked, yet Del Rio and Sheamus did not.
No.
So it's not always about like, and hell, even the Big Show Mark Henry matches were better than you would expect them to be. I mean, shit, I remember one Raw, and this was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It was 2006, Kane and Big Show. But they were wrestling like Dean Malenko. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And JR's on commentary, like, folks, I did not expect this to as a catch kind of match. It was still one of my favorite matches to go back to because like you did not expect that for them to be like doing a hold for hold thing. Like who expects Kane to do a drop toe hold on the Big Show? It was brilliant.
I know, right? Like I even thought like
it's all chemistry though.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
Hell, even the Extreme Rules match I saw a couple years ago in Chicago with Roman and Big Show. those guys work well with each other, at least in a hardcore environment. I thought it was kind of cool. It is what it is. But let's move on to Raw. A lot of I saw a lot of character development on Raw Monday. To be honest with you, like we were talking about earlier with the stuff with Kendrick and Perkins, they got to do a little bit more talking in the backstage area. There are two cruiserweight matches. Big shout out to Lindsay Dorado and Drew Gulak making their first main roster WWE appearances on Raw, which is pretty cool. I love the tag team match they had with Swan and Alexander. I thought it was really cool. It's kind of cool. Like, you know, I got to see a lot of these guys in person at AEW shows, local indie shows. I'm sure you and Adam's seen them at other shows as well. And it's cool. It's cool when you see talented guys like that from the underground area of the business get to be on that big platform like that and have a 2-segment match. It wasn't like a little, here the guys are, and then the guy Gulak and Dorado got video packages too, which I thought was kind of cool. Here's another thing though I thought kind of stood out to me from Monday. So we know that Sheamus Cesaro's a tag team now. Okay, we got that out of the way. I found it interesting, at least during the highlight reel. Jericho's like, "We're the Universal Champion."
Yeah, they'll look at that.
Yeah,
He's been saying that for a couple weeks now.
They're slow. I love how they're slowly building to something. You don't often see that in wrestling anymore, where you can slowly build something, and I think that's what is kind of sorely needed in wrestling again.
You know what they're building towards?
It.
Yes, it.
Yeah,
if you guys can't tell that Owens and Jericho are going to be fighting each other for the title, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, it's listen, Jericho right now is better than he probably has ever been.
Yes.
Honestly, I don't know. It's tough because it's always in the moment, and I'm going to go back still because I remember being in the moment with like all the WCW stuff and all that. But I don't know, man. There's just been something about this calendar year for Jericho that if you're a Jericho mark, like I am, like if you're a true Jerichoholic, I don't know. This 2016 might actually be the gift of Jericho. This might be the finest year. So we might as well enjoy this like wine. We got to drink it in, man.
Drink it in, man.
Chris Jericho is so... He's also brilliant in that he knows when to be a face and when to be a heel. Like it's almost like he knows the perfect time. Like, okay, my face run is kind of worn out a little bit. I think I should turn heel again, and he just recreates himself every time. And when he goes away for a while, and he comes back after that long hiatus, and people are dying to see Chris Jericho again. It keeps cycling like that. That's how good Chris Jericho is.
Let me guys ask you this: Do you think Triple H is needed on the show on Monday, or would you save him for the Raw in LA that's happening next week?
I don't think you need him necessarily for the go home show.
Well, I'm saying Raw still has a couple more weeks before Hell in a Cell.
Oh, you're right. Oh, I don't know.
I wonder if people are trying to be sour on Owens' title reign because of the fact Triple H hasn't come on television and explained why he gave the title to Owens. Like, I see this thing on social media where everyone's like, Owens is being an afterthought, having an afterthought title reign because Triple H is not on television. I think that's kind of a good thing where you're highlighting Owens and not having Triple H on the show. I don't know.
Not only that, we're wanting more. As fans, we always want to end a show wanting more. We always this is what again drives me nuts. Like, I get it, guys. I get it. Everybody wants all the answers all the time, right? You want to be given everything and force-fed everything as quickly as possible. But this is one thing I'm enjoying about this whole Kevin Owens scenario right now is that we don't know. We don't know. We have no idea. And I love that they did that little clip of Triple H and put it on WWE.com. You know what I mean? Or was it YouTube or WWE.com or whatever, wherever the hell they put it, of just Stephanie. Because, again, it's so vague because it's just a man picking up his wife from work. It ain't no big deal. All he said is, hey, how'd things go? Maybe he meant something. Maybe he didn't mean something. I know when I see my wife, I'd be like, hey, how'd things go today?
And what people have to remember is that even in a kayfabe perspective, he's the COO and he's got a billion things to do.
Correct. Yeah.
So he can't really be doing all these different things.
And in a way,
kayfabe perspective,
and from the kayfabe perspective too, we could say, when Triple H finally does come back, he could say, you know what, Seth, I didn't need to be here for Kevin Owens. I had to be around for you. And imagine that is a mic drop in a promo. You know what I mean? So so there's things, guys, that we kind of gotta like. I'm totally digging with what they're doing with this storyline, and I know people aren't gonna like it because it does feel kind of what they've always been doing with Raw. I get it. It doesn't feel as fresh as maybe some of the other storylines, but that's okay. There's a lot of star power in it, and if they're making you hate Kevin Owens' championship run, good, because he's a heel and you're supposed to.
And I like the fact that Triple H is not on every show. The fact that his first appearance, I after WrestleMania losing to Roman was the fact that he created one of the big special moments of this reality era so far when KO won the title on Raw. And when he's on television, it's supposed to be effective. It's supposed to mean something. And here's the general thing I want to get to the Raw time where we were talking about before the show. So as hardcore wrestling fans now, we've lost our sense of humor. We forgot the fact that this television show is a television show, not a sport. We forgot about the fact that the show's episodic. Like, everybody's expecting the go-home show every single week. And also, here's the main thing now, and I think you guys will agree with me in this, and we don't watch the show as wrestling fans anymore. We don't, especially at least for Monday Night Raw. I know fans watch the show for SmackDown as fans, and SmackDown's been doing a great job with storytelling and all that. But when it comes to Monday Night Raw, boy, get out your notebooks and write down the booking mistakes.
It's on the list.
Get the list. Get the list of booking failures on Monday Night Raw. We don't watch Raw as fans anymore. We don't. We got the case of the. Oh, we got the case of the Monday. So I'm gonna write everything it's about the booking on Raw. Am I wrong, Eric?
No, you're not wrong. You're right. People do have that. I mean, look, I'll admit I've been guilty of that myself at times. But it's like, I'll compare it to watching a movie. Like, if I was cynical and pointed out every mistake of logic in a movie, I would never enjoy anything ever. You know? It would take out all the enjoyment of everything. I mean, you can pick apart every movie you've ever seen, really, with logic mistakes. But why? Why not just enjoy what you have? And
here's my problem that I think that I'm seeing a lot of recently. And I used to somewhat agree with it, but again, I understand that the business has completely shifted. The fan base has shifted. The viewership has shifted to a point where all the people that want to say they know what demographics watching it, no, you don't. According to WWE's website, if you look at the demographic, it's a certain percentage male, certain percentage female, certain percentage, they have a better idea because they know who's watching on Hulu. They know who's watching on YouTube. They know who's watching on Facebook. They know you don't. Nielsen ratings people, you don't. You have no clue. But I guess I used to be in where every segment should be a home run, every segment. But you know what? I disagree with that because what's a home run to me is not a home run to Eric, is not a home run to Josh, is not a home run to anybody listening at home, and vice versa. And what they do on Monday Night Raw is with your flagship show, you are pleasing every single fan base that you have watching your product. It's Saturday Night Live where you're going to have you might cater to whatever host is on that night, but you might have a musical skit, or you might have like a timepiece, or you might have a futuristic thing. You might have more improv a certain week. You might have more. That's what Raw is. Raw is a variety show. It's a wrestling themed variety show that is supposed to pull emotion from. So my point is that none of us are going to like every segment because, one, we're not children. Two, some of us are not either male or female, depending on who's listening. You're the opposite sex. You know what I mean? Like, you're either a male or a female, not both. Or maybe, I don't know, whatever. But I think the point of obviously what I'm trying to say is that they're catering to all fans now. So at the end of the day, you're not going to – when it was TV 14, you were only catering to juvenile college kids. That's it. I was a juvenile college kid.
Me too.
That's what you were – and you were catering because all it was over-sexuality and vulgarness and blood. That there was no real stories. Yes, there were some great superstars. And that's the shame of it is like the really great superstars kind of got outshined by a lot of clown shoes behavior that, again, people were saying you're ruining professional wrestling with this smut that you're putting on TV. Remember, that was the older generation back then. So there's a lot of echoing of similarities of what we've been saying here, guys. But to me, I think that we have to take a step back and realize that not every segment's even going to be a wrestling segment anymore. We have fucking Dolph Ziggler as Colonel Sanders and The Miz as the chicken. You know what I mean? And it's whatever. It's a commercial. It's an advert, but it is what it is. We have to understand it's not catered to us specifically. That Monday Night Raw is not catered to Adam Daley. It's okay if I don't like a segment. If I like 2 of the 3 hours, it's a hit. It's an absolute hit. But you got to understand, they're catering to everybody, not just you. Not just you. It's variety shows. SmackDown, it's smaller, it's simpler. You know you're getting your fans because casual fans aren't watching 2 shows a week. The casual fan, unfortunately, sometimes likes things that we don't, and vice versa. Simple. It should be simple, guys. If it's so simple, a mark like me can figure it out. A stupid wannabe mark, quote unquote. If I can figure this out, if I can figure this out, guys, come on. It's not rocket science.
Yeah,
it's not.
When did mark become a derogatory term? No wrestling term should be derogatory at all. What's wrong with that? I mean, I was a mark. I mean, maybe I still am a little bit too, but especially when I was a kid.
If you consider yourself an analyst, you're a mark at the end of the day. I do my writing, but I'm not going to tell people to introduce me as a wrestling analyst. I'm not going to do it. Unless I'm in the business one of these days, I'm not going to disrespect the people that are in it, because that's just a spit in those people's faces. Say, oh, I'm an expert. Get my opinions, folks. Get my opinions, because if you listen to me, you're never wrong. And that's my issue, going back to what we started the show off with. As fans, we're letting people who claim to be the know-it-alls form our own opinions as wrestling fans, and I think that's pure and utter bullshit, because I'm not getting a gauge of what people want in 2016. Because 1 second it's, oh, we want the Attitude Era back, and oh, we want the 80s territories booking back, and then the next second, oh, we want Ring of Honor wrestling in New Japan hard-hitting style. You need to make up your fucking mind at this point.
And Josh, I said, you know what? I said it once, I said it a million times, but I'm going to say it again now that the brand extension happened. If you truly don't like how Raw is being run, and if you truly don't like it and you hate it that much, and you hate sitting there on Twitter for 3 hours complaining for 3 hours, and you just hate it, and all week long you're complaining about Raw, but you're giving them ratings, because what you don't realize is the more you bitch about them, the more you're giving them a social media presence, and the more you're actually helping their business. So if you truly don't like how Raw is being run, don't talk about it. Give it the Ryback treatment. Make yourself indifferent on it. But the fact that and I know everybody was like, well, because it wanted fixed. It doesn't need fixed. It doesn't need fixed. We just have to understand what Monday Night Raw is now. And whether you like it or don't like it, that's irrelevant. Because it's not focused for, that's the entitlement that, everyone wants to say there's an entitlement generation. But all of those of you that are sitting out there saying, well, every segment should be a home run to me, that's the key word, to me. That's bullshit. It's the biggest cop-out excuse, because if you truly understand what they're doing on Monday night, especially when you look at how much they tie in Hispanic Heritage Month, Connor's Cure, all the great charities they do on a month-to-month basis, that they do pound down onto us more on Raw than on SmackDown. Raw is absolutely more your corporate-driven show, guys, and you don't have to like it, but just understand that by complaining about it, you're letting them know it's okay, because it's gates are still going to go up, merch is still going to go up, social media presence is still going up, and it doesn't matter. You're giving them those extra ratings so that the television ratings that people want to complain about don't matter.
Go ahead, Eric.
I have a little rant I want to. And
go
look,
ahead, shoot, brother, shoot.
I don't want this to come from a bad place or anything, because I'm a fan. And I'm not trying to shit on any fan, but during let me ask you this before I get into this. Where was Raw?
Raw was in Cincinnati.
Okay, so it wasn't in Chicago. All right, I just wanted to get that out, because you have a great cruiserweight match a rematch for the title between T.J. Perkins and Brian Kendrick. Why are fans chanting CM Punk and Randy Savage and shit? It's a little disrespectful to me when you've got 2 great performers in there right in front of you putting on a great match, and when those things have nothing to do with that, it's a little the CM Punk chants are a little old. Look, I love CM Punk as much as the next guy, but he's not relevant, especially if it's not in Chicago. I mean, if it's in Chicago, I could maybe give it a pass, or if it's the day after WrestleMania where you have all these people from everywhere, that's understandable. But on a regular Monday Night Raw where you have these people giving their all, especially because people have been clamoring for cruiserweights to be back.
Yeah.
And they're actually giving them time. I mean, I'm so happy for someone like Cedric Alexander to finally make his name to WWE, or someone like Rich Swann, who you'd never think would be in WWE. They're making their dreams come true. And Kendrick, even, who's having this comeback. And Perkins, for the first time being in WWE, it's a big deal to them. And it's a lot of the same people that are – there's a lot of hypocrites in a way, I think, because people are saying – the same people that say they want the cruiserweights back are probably the same people that are chanting CM Punk during that match. Well, it pisses me off a little bit.
And here's the thing, though. Like, everybody knows me. Punk's my favorite wrestler. I am a Chicago guy. I am biased towards Punk because he's from the city. And I you guys have no idea. Every time when I go to a Chicago show now these days, that even as me, Punk's my favorite wrestler, I have to do a face palm when my own city is chanting CM Punk during a match like Dolph Ziggler and Cesaro or something, for example. And I listened to the podcast that he did with Cole, the one that doing the whole lawsuit and all that bullshit or whatever. But like, he said that he doesn't mind the chance, but be respectful of the guys that are good. Like, okay, I understand if something's bad and it's not working, and if you want to express your displeasure, do that. But when Punk said on the podcast a lot, like if somebody's good and they need that like praise, don't do that. What are you getting out of that? Like, and you always know who it is. It's always that college people that either choose to not go to work that day, get themselves drunk, and try to make an ass out of themselves on worldwide television. And that's what it is. And I'm saying that as a Punk fan, and I Punk's my guy. I have no problem with the chance, but do it when it's necessary, not when people are trying to fucking bust their ass and try to make themselves stand out to you.
Yeah, it's like I said, in Chicago, I'll give it a pass because it's Chicago. And even that is pushing it. But like when you have a great cruiserweight match between Perkins and Kendrick that was entertaining, why are you saying that shit?
Yeah, that wasn't even in Chicago, was it?
No, it's in Cincinnati.
It was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and listen, I know Punk was big around the Cincinnati area because Punk was big in like Cincy, Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, but here's the thing: I don't think that if you're truly a CM Punk fan, you know that the last thing that he wants is you chanting his name at a WWE event. He wants to be detached from them. He wants, regardless of whether he fights again in UFC or not, whether he fights MMA somewhere else, whatever's going on, he does not want to be associated with WWE. He's gone, guys. He's gone. Let the divorce happen. Don't keep you're like the ex-girlfriend that won't let it listen, I love Punk too, and I miss him, and I miss the promos, and I miss AJ, but he's gone. We got to let him go. It's time to move on, ladies and gentlemen. So can we stop with these chants, please? I promise you, I don't want to speak for the man, but if we're as alike as people tell us that we're alike, he doesn't want you chanting his name at WWE events. Period.
No. And especially for a guy like Tony Nese that was making his Raw debut this past Monday night, that's probably traveled the road with Punk when Punk wrestled out of the East Coast, and that's a friend of his, and you're shitting on his debut night on television for what? It's because it's in the middle of the third hour of the fucking show.
It makes me think. It makes me think of a meme where he's going, and you're wondering why I left this company, and it's reasons like that because his fans.
What bothers me the most is it wasn't a boring or bad segment. It was a great cruiserweight match. Why are you chanting Randy Savage too? Like, what the fuck?
It goes back to the fucking Full Sail crowd, and like, okay, I get it. I want people to go to shows and have a good time. But if you're gonna go to a show that you genuinely hate and you go on social media telling people how much that you're regretting spending money on this, it's just showing how dumb you are. At the end of the day, I had somebody tell me, "Oh, they pay $400 to go to these shows, so they have the right to say what they want." Yeah, they got the right to say what they want, but they're making an ass out of themselves in worldwide television to chant for a guy that's not even in the company anymore. When you got two guys in the ring, that those same people that are chanting his name is the same people that are like CM Punk and wrestle the way CM Punk does. It's ass backwards where we are now. Okay, sometimes the Full Sail crowd is fine. I thought there were more in the Cruiserweight Classic shows, but when it came to like the NXT Takeover shows that are at Full Sail or anything like that, it's just, oh, it's all about us. It's all about us. This and that. Whatever.
I just want to say I hate the couple different Bailey chants. I can't stand it. I don't know what it is about them. They just annoy me. and look, and I understand, like, singing along with Shinsuke's theme, but don't do it every single show. It's a little annoying. Like, do it the one time, or when Rude made his takeover debut, and
you can sing the Glorious thing every time. I don't care. But
which, by the way, I bought my car at a place called Glorious Motorsports. So every time I think of that place, every time I see my car, I think of Rude's theme, and it just puts a smile on my face.
See, I look at it in a way that I think that if the chanting is creative, topical, and relevant, any of those three, I am absolutely okay with it. Like, I know NXT can kind of get out of hand. I love the different Bailey chants. I love the whole Enzo Amore Seven Nation Army White Stripes thing that people were doing, Like, I love, like, that's the one thing about the NXT crowd, is that they were being creative because they loved the characters. And, like, that type of thing is what you want to see out of your fan base. The fact that now they're being creative themselves about your own talent, like, holy shit, this is something that you can praise, right? But I think that when we're talking about, like, if we're chanting to try and hijack a show, whether it's chanting Randy Savage when Stephanie McMahon's in the ring, or CM Punk, or chanting, there was a time where I'm glad that the We Want Divas during the Divas Revolution. I'm glad that the We Want Divas chants were starting earlier, even before there was a revolution and stuff like that. But I just think, guys, we have to be smart and just kind of better with what we chant. Like, I love the fact that people were chanting, or were singing along with Glorious. I love anytime Nakamura comes out, how they sing along, just because I feel like that shows, hell yeah, people are invested. Just like Kurt Angle sucks, or just like John Cena sucks, or
Sami Zayn's whole theme.
Right, exactly.
Or the New Day Rock stuff.
Yep. Yeah. I totally dig it, as long as it's, and those are my three things, though. You know what I mean? If it's topical, or it's, and even sometimes, guys, like, I don't know if we know, it was Cincy, so you get a pass, but I don't know if we needed a Harem chant. But it's Cincy, so you get a pass.
But like on Raw, like, I would have preferred if they had, like, Bryan, Kendrick, TJP, like stuff
right.
like that.
Yes.
Because
that would have been relevant. Absolutely. That would have been relevant to what was going on. And Punk, again, guys, I just don't, as a CM Punk supermark, like, the dude, just stop it. The dude don't, I promise you CM Punk probably does not want you chanting his name in a WWE arena at all.
Before we go to SmackDown, I want to get your guys' thoughts. Eric, did you get to see what John Cena said on Talking Smack last night?
I didn't. I not have much access to the network since I'm away.
Yeah. Adam, how about you, brother?
Yeah, so listen, I'm not a Nikki Bella hater like my wife, but Nikki, you better watch out, because I'm starting to have a little man crush on your man. He's like, listen, Cena's the man lately, dude. He killed it on Talking Smack. I've been on this Cena train for like 2 years now, but we'll get into it. Yes, I saw it. And no, that's a joke. I'm not going after Nikki Bella's man.
I gotta say this though, maybe it's just me, but I noticed it while I was watching it live. Renee Young's chest was super red. I don't know what was up with her last night.
Yeah, was Ric Flair backstage?
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Was Flair there just tossing out chalks?
Is Ambrose getting a little too frisky?
I get that Ambrose is a titty master, but he was wrestling for 30 minutes, though. Where's he getting that wrestling during the time?
Oh, it's so great.
Yeah. All right, whatever.
I forgot about that. That was the greatest running joke.
Good point about John Cena, because I think it took up until a year or two ago to finally appreciate John Cena for what he does. You know, it took until like his run with the U.S. title, which really made things stand out. And ever since then, he's just been on point.
For me, it was a little bit before then. It was even a little bit before the Punk like story, like with him and Punk. It was when you could tell that he was starting to get like, not like I'm ready to kind of like take a step back, or like obviously the man's still so invested and he wants to be the man and he's always going to be the man there. But I think that it was one of those where when you realized he was kind of tired of being the constant torchbearer, you know what I mean? And it's not that he didn't want to, or it's not that, it's just that in a way it does limit what you can do. It limits your creativity. It limits what you can do outside of the business. It limits what you can even put on social media. And again, guys, that's what we don't realize. And I just think that it seems like John Cena has had a hell of a lot more fun these past 5 years than he might have ever had on WWE TV. You know, so at least from a fan standpoint, just, you know, watching back. So, and you know, and a big thing for me was just talking to a couple people in the business that you know, eventually actually ended up in WWE. Even when they weren't in WWE, nothing but high praise for John Cena. I mean, it was like you can say what you want, or you have no idea what he does for this business. And I think everybody's starting to see that now. You know, and I think it's good on Cena, and it's unfair that, but again, it was like timing is everything, and it's just Cena had to be the torchbearer in the super PG era that happened after the Benoit incident and the Benoit tragedy, and that's I know that I always pinpoint that, guys, and I know people are probably like, all right, enough of that, but again, you don't go from blowing up Vince McMahon on TV one week to all of a sudden Super Cena is like not even bubble gum, it's like juicy fruit for like 5 years, you know what I mean? Or for 4 years until finally it's like, okay, and all of a sudden he can start to be edgier again. He can start to be a little looser, and I don't know. I just think it's unfortunate that it was good on John Cena for being the man that he is, and I think that shows how much character that he has. Yeah. But I'm glad that he's finally able to have fun with this again.
Speaking of SmackDown last night, I love what I'm seeing from the Usos. Them as heels, as a tag team, works great. I love the new theme song, by the way. I'm glad they finally switched the song, which was pretty cool. Love the stuff with the women, too, last night. So everybody wants to talk about 50-50 booking. Nikki Bella has been kind of jobbing out to Carmella ever since she came back. This girl can't beat Carmella anytime, any match. Even the six-man match, Carmella eliminated her. So I'm happy for her. I like the little beatdown that Alexa Bliss gave Becky Lynch. It was short, but I thought it was effective. Like, I didn't know what Becky was going to do that night, who she was going to wrestle, but hey, even something like that, to have Alexa Bliss go out there and attack her from behind like that and cut a promo, I thought that was fine. The Heath Slater Instagram picture with him with the pull pop me, I thought that was gold. Get that double wide, baby!
And you know what? It took a while for me to even like realize, like, oh shit, it's the above ground pull. Like, it's because of the above ground pull, and it's like it took a minute because of the promo that he cut before, and like it's the little subtle things, man. SmackDown's doing little subtle things. Like last week I brought up, like the little facts, the talent facts they give, how it had the Usos is 100% Samoan. Like that, it cracks me up, man. It's the little subtleties, I think, that really win over wrestling fans, and SmackDown's been doing a good job with that.
There was only 3 matches, but there was a lot of story, like character development on that show too. Especially the stuff that was going on with Bray and Randy Orton to start off the show. Randy was like doing a whole tour of the backstage area. I will say this though, and I know the guy's getting a lot of flack, and he deserves it because he just came off like an ignorant asshole over this past weekend. We do not need to get into that because This is not enough time for that. I don't need to get publicity for a guy that's just ignorant to topics they should be talking about in the first place. And I'll say this, though. When he came up from behind Bray with the sheet mask, I thought that was pretty cool. And then he was seeing he's got the whole world in his hands in this stool. I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay, now I wanted to save this question for today because I want to see if it was just something that messed up on my DVR or did the video get all real choppy on SmackDown?
Yeah, well,
was it supposed to be like that?
Yes, because when he was singing, he's got the whole world in his hand. He was basically mocking Bray and playing mind games, a visual back and forth of what was going on.
But then all of a sudden, but the audio sounded like it got real twisted on my end, and then Bray was just sitting there and was like mouthing.
Well, that's what I meant, because like, okay.
I think someone in production fucked up.
It wasn't my fault.
It's just because if you looked at Otunga's reaction and you like Moro was like whatever, I know what's going on here. Yeah. But it was funny if you looked at like JBL's face and like Otunga, because Otunga was like, yeah, it just looks like Randy Orton really might have got the best of the mind games. And I'm thinking, dude, the last person they showed was Bray Wyatt sitting there just basically like almost like he like Randy Orton turned into Bray Wyatt. I don't know. It was just funny because I was like, oh shit, it's live TV, baby. That's what happens.
Live TV. Yeah. A couple other things from SmackDown I wanted to say before we go to Eric's thoughts. Man, you know, I'm gonna get heat for this, but I don't care. I feel like when it comes to like when, let's say like you're cutting promos, right? And it's kind of cool, like where Miz was walking in the backstage area and he saw the LeBron James poster and he removed it. I loved it. This is where the heat part's going to come in. I can't stand LeBron James with the life of me. I can't. I'm not going to go in the whole diatribe on the guy, but I can't stand that guy. He made the NBA look like professional wrestling last year. If you want to tell me I'm on bullshit, why did the NBA suspend Draymond Green in Game 5 in the NBA Finals last year? Okay, okay, enough basketball talk for now. but I will say this though, Miz and Ziggler killed it last night. That was my favorite part of SmackDown last night. The homecoming segment, and the Ziggler's going to put his career on the line now at No Mercy versus Miz for the IC title. I think it's great. If it was me, I wouldn't even be surprised if it was the main event in the show, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. It probably won't. It'd be the triple threat match, but even still, Miz and Ziggler killed it last night.
Yeah. Oh man, the Miz. It's amazing because it's again, like, for Miz, it's always been character thing with me. It's never been like Dan himself. I've always respected him. And like you talk about Cena doing all these things, Miz to maybe a lesser extent does all that stuff too outside of the ring. You know, all the appearances, all this and that. He does a lot of that too. And he's a workhorse when it comes to outside the ring. But yeah, he's been on point for a while now. Ziggler, it kind of makes me wonder though, like now that they threw that wrench in the whole thing where Ziggler's putting his career on the line, what does that mean? Does that mean Ziggler's definitely taking it? But you know, leaving never means leaving in WWE. Like, how many times has Cena been, you know, kicked out and then he's back, you know? Many times. So I don't think it necessarily means Ziggler's taking it, because Miz is on such a roll now. So, and this is coming from a non-Miz fan, Miz should hold on to the belt till Mania. I agree with you guys.
Yeah,
what do you do now? Like what?
No, I'll tell you what we do now. We say goodbye to Dolph Ziggler because he's gonzo's. That's what's going on. Yeah. I think there was a lot of visceral emotion last night. I actually think that was, you know, listen, guys. I know this is they're painting a lot of kayfabe, like, you know, really good now. But I don't know, man. No knock on Dolph, but he's never been the best actor where he could turn on the waterworks like that. It just seemed like, again, there was something that I am not going to be surprised when Dolph Ziggler loses and this is his swan song.
It may be. It may be. I mean,
that really didn't. I'll be honest, that did not dawn on me, but it's very well possible.
I read, and this is, I might have seen that his contract expires at the end of October. So that is something to take into consideration, guys. Whether there's any factual, listen, that was on a dirt sheet, so that's, who the hell knows if that's even true. He could be signed till 2075 for all we know. What I mean? I don't know.
I mean, the other foo-foo shma journalists were saying that Dean Ambrose was supposed to take a leave from the company too. So I guess that's supposed to happen too. I don't know.
Yeah. Going back to the women's, I think you make a good point where it seems like SmackDown Women's Division has a little more substance than Raw's, because on Raw you just have whatever's the title match and maybe like Bayley sprinkled in. That's it.
Yeah.
Dana Brooks hijinks, but what, and you got Nia Jax, whatever. But SmackDown, you got two different separate programs going on for the women. You got the Carmella Nikki Bella thing, which didn't need the title, and that's probably why neither one of them got the women's title. And you got the Becky Alexa thing for the title, and you got other stuff going on. So I think that makes it a little more substance to me. Because you got great performers on Raw, don't get me wrong. I love Charlotte, Sasha, and Bayley. But, if that's it, you need a little more going on.
I will say this, though. I thought that when Bayley was cutting her promo after the enhancement squash match, whatever you want to call it, I thought it would have been a good moment for Paige to come out and drop her. Because you know how Bayley was talking about, it's all you guys are helping me get this momentum and going after this championship. And what Adam told me a couple of weeks ago about Paige saying, you guys are worried more about my personal life than my career. And he tossed me to the side for all these horsewomen and all that.
There's some room on the roster for the Raw roster. Paige.
But look at the story, though. Paige was the women's champion. No, she was a women's champion in the first NXT TakeOver. Yeah, everybody talks about Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky. Paige has been tossed aside for a year and a half. The story writes itself.
Yeah. And look, you can even go the same route on SmackDown when Emma gets back.
Correct, yes.
She was also in that first, and she was kind of overlooked. And Emma really, when she went back to NXT and did that little thing with Dana Brooke and then got to the main roster, I mean, again, it was refreshing, and that's what was needed. So she would have but I agree, Paige definitely has that as far as storylines available when she does get back.
So the main event was AJ and Dean Ambrose. Very good match. Dean, I agree. The whatever you call it, I think Marl calls it the lunatic lariat, so that's what I write down. That's what it's called.
The overdone lariat.
Yeah. It's run its course, but maybe
it's not even on Dean Ambrose either. They're probably saying, you got to do this so many times.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, my thing is when you take a Pele kick and then you bounce off the ropes, then hit the lariat. What's that doing? You know what I mean?
Well, you know what? I'm not even that doesn't bother me as much, but it goes back to MVP's whole ball and move. Certain things you can only do so much before it's okay. We want to talk believability in professional wrestling. That's why certain guys have to be booked a certain way. You're gonna just lay there while some dude goes rope to rope and then stands above you and goes ball and give me a break.
Yeah, to the same point, you didn't see Scotty 2 Hotty do the worm several times a match.
Right.
Correct. Yes. Man.
Because there used to be a trademark and a finisher, but now there's just signature.
Yeah, for me, the whole, and I loved Santino, but I didn't see, and I understand comedy in in wrestling, but I didn't see the Cobra as a finisher. I saw it more as, to me, I almost wish it was a setup, because it I get it. Like you do that to somebody and it like disorients them for a little bit, so much so that it gets you ready for a finisher. That's the problem I had with that. That I think it should have been a setup. Unless you're doing a strictly comedy match, but if you're, I think it would have been better as a setup move.
Well, it's kind of different though when you have like a guy like Umaga that has his thumb taped up and it was doing the spike. You know what I mean?
Even that, I think, should have been a setup move.
Mm-hmm.
For Samoa!
Because like a jab to the throat is going to disorient you, but I don't think it's going to make someone pin you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think to a bigger extent should also be a setup, but especially Santino's, because it's just like, what did he really do? He put his fingers to your forehead or something?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, look, I get it for what it was. It was entertainment, and it was entertaining to me, and I loved Santino.
Hey, if Hulk Hogan could go by with little slow delivered rapid fire punches and a leg drop and still get pops, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
We're calling those rapid fire? Really? Oh,
I said slow.
Okay.
Here's the thing about Hulk Hogan. His wrestling in WWE, yes, it wasn't very good. But you have to understand that's the way he was told to wrestle. Mm-hmm. He wrestled in Japan completely different. Mm-hmm. Hogan is not, he's not that great of a wrestler, no.
No, I'm not saying
but he understands, he always understood like things like timing and, and he knew when to use his charisma and when, and selling and this, well, maybe not selling for the whole hulking up thing. But, he sold for like the whole match until he hulked up. But
let's go back to the main event. So I thought it was pretty funny. So Styles drops Cena while he's sitting on the commentary table, and then Cena gets on the ring apron, kind of like a heel, distracting the referee. Hold me back, Graf, hold me back. and then Dean gets out of the ring and drops Cena again. Like, damn, the poor guy got dropped like a fly. And then. Go ahead, Aaron.
I have a question for you guys because I want to know what you have to say about this. I really think that this is going to open up to once after the triple threat match is over at the next pay-per-view.
Yeah.
What is it? No Mercy or
No Mercy? Yeah.
After that, I feel like it's good. You're going to have maybe a long drawn out Cena Ambrose thing, which would be great, but. Where does that leave AJ Styles? Like, who do you see if either of them are going to be AJ's opponents? Because I think Cena's eventually going to get that one-on-one opportunity. But where do you see AJ's opponents as in between?
Randy Orton.
I think it's either. I think it may be even Bray. To be honest with you, I feel like a double turn coming between Styles and Ambrose, where Styles turns more to a good guy. I don't see Baron Corbin going after him. I don't. But at the same time, here's the thing, though. Like honestly, who from the outside or even even from NXT that you could really bring him up right now to fight Styles for the world title on SmackDown? You know what I mean? It's kind of like I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm tired of seeing when every time an NXT guy comes up, the fans are like, "Oh, this person better steamroll against all these WWE superstars, or he's being held back." This kind of makes the main roster guy look like jabronis just because NXT is the hottest thing since sliced bread, that's the issue I have here. So unless it's Kurt Angle coming to SmackDown to fight AJ Styles, I don't know who else. Literally from the outside, is going to fight him for the title. It may even be Orton. But who knows?
Yeah, I just think they might go Orton, then go into something later on, maybe go back to Cena. I don't know. I don't know. It just I don't know. Because again, that's one thing. Like, they're pretty focused on the women's division, which is good on SmackDown. And I mentioned this yesterday. I would actually watch an entire hour show that was just the women's division from SmackDown. So I think in a way they could probably grab the entire women's division probably and have their own show. But that's neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting ahead of myself, but. I don't know, man. I think that with the exception of there's a couple top big names, it really is. There's not it's funny because there is more star power on Raw, but it just seems like everything is clicking better on SmackDown. But Josh, you and I have talked about this. We understand why. Because again, Raw is different than SmackDown. They can write them differently or book them differently, write and book, however you want to call it, because it's a mixture of both now, guys. And I just think I don't know. I think that. Anytime that we want to talk about somebody from NXT coming up and instantly getting thrown here or instantly getting thrown there, we kind of got to, again, guys, be careful what we wish for, because if that were the case, we never would have gotten the Kevin Owens moment that we got this year if he would have been thrown a title last year. You know what I mean? And, guys, again, I know we love our certain men and women, and but we have to remember, too, like, with everyone saying, oh, put the title on Bayley now. Maybe Bayley doesn't want to have the championship right now. Maybe Bayley understands that there is a learning curve. Mm-hmm. We forget that sometimes it can be an easy transition, but there's still a lot to learn. And I don't think we realize as fans, as whomever that we do these things, we truly don't understand the grind when they put one of those titles on you. I truly don't believe that.
I have a feeling that Sami Zayn is going to SmackDown, kind of like how Swagger went. Because, what is this guy going to do? Like, if anybody from Raw is going to go to SmackDown, it's not Cesaro, it's not Sheamus. I think it's going to be Sami Zayn.
He's going to go feud with Miz maybe later on.
Maybe. That's not a bad idea.
And I think you make a good point about, like, people do have certain expectations with NXT guys, but you take guys like the Ascension, who, I mean, okay, you people could argue that they were booked shitty from the moment they stepped on the main roster, but were they really that good in the first place? Not really. I'm not. This is not shitting on them. I'm just saying, like, they weren't that good. I mean, they were dominant in NXT because at the time there were really no tag teams. Like, the tag team division wasn't, what it's been in the last few months when the Ascension were running the place.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay, they did book them like Road Warrior ripoffs, and then they basically had all the legends kill them, but still, they weren't really, like, you can kind of understand who's gonna get who the fans are gonna get behind or against on the main roster compared to NXT, like, and who's not going to. Like, Bayley, I think, is one of those people that are so over that are going to be over on the main roster just as much as like the Vaudevillains, for instance, didn't really transfer to the main roster. And I love the Vaudevillains, but I don't think they were ready for the main roster because, like, that kind of character doesn't. And I agree, that kind of character doesn't necessarily translate to the main roster, and which is a shame because I like them, and I just unfortunately don't really see them doing much.
I'm gonna say this because we got to move on. John Cena was in from the Chappelle Show, spitting straight fire. He killed it. He awesome. Killed it last night on Talking Smack.
He was all 5 Dylons.
Yes.
He gets, on a scale of 0 to 5 Dylons, he gets 1 Dylon, 2 Dylon, 3 Dylon, 4 Dylon, 5 Dylon, because he spits that Talking Smack fire.
I rip and I rhyme. I rhyme and I rip.
Yeah. All right, this is how we're going to close out the show today. We're debuting a new segment called Joker's Wild. We'll see if this can continue on each week. I'm going to toss it off to my good brother Adam, and he's going to lead this fun course. Go ahead, my friend.
Oh, okay. So real quick, listen, I want people to understand that, like, I still watch these things as a fan, and I'm a very twisted dude, and especially a lot of the stuff that, like, when we're watching a show, it comes into my mind. Like, I'm one of those guys where I study a lot of comedy, and Andy Kindler always said, if you say something funny in the moment, write it down, because funny people are funny in the moment. They don't think about being funny. So these are a couple things that I just thought during the shows the past couple of days that I just wanted to share. And remember, guys, I'm talking about the characters, not the actual people. I know I have to say this every week, but Jesus, people take stuff so literal these days that you can't say that. So the first thing that I've realized over these past couple wrestling events is, everybody wants, like, the big thing was, okay, so now that cruiserweights are here, so who's going to be the first cruiserweight to, like, be a world champion? And, like, there's always this rush to, like, push people, like, to a world championship for some reason all the time. So here's what I want. I want TJ Perkins to be the first one that they push up, just so Roman Reigns Superman punches him so fucking hard that he bounces off the mat and shoots up so high that he sees the curvature of the earth. And as he's coming back down into the ring, Roman Reigns spears him through the ring. I cannot stand TJ Perkins' gimmick. I hate anybody who dabs. Enzo Amore is the only person that can get away with it in my book. I can't stand the gimmick at all. And listen, I love TJ Perkins as an athlete, as a wrestler, as an entertainer. He's fucking great. But guys, I'm talking character here. And as far as character goes, I just want him to get Superman punched to the moon. And that's so, guys, if you really want a cruiserweight to go up and face a heavyweight, there's your match. And I want to see it happen, but I want full bearded Roman Reigns for that. From SmackDown, this is how you make wrestling fun. We all know that my wife is very vocal about not liking a certain Bella, and she's very upset right now that Naomi has her blocked on Twitter. And I know I find that I get some very strange humor out of this. So last night when SmackDown was on and Nikki Bella and Naomi were cutting their promo, I just envisioned that they were cutting a promo on my wife, and it made it exponentially better. And I was like, this is so great. They're shooting on my wife right now. This is great. And she's going to kill me when she gets home. And I want to give a shout out to Sam, though, because she's doing some acting work right now for the show Dogward Down. It's going to be on ABC, so I want to give her a loving shout out. But I did want to tell that story because I absolutely bought into their promo last night, because I thought, yep, they're shooting on my wife, and this is phenomenal. And the third one is actually, I kind of just wanted to say it because I realized this after, especially now that they're doing all, like, listen, Seth Rollins is face now, and he's always in hoodies and stuff like that. And I always get a doppelganger like thing with, like, people always tell me that. So I kind of realized that I'm kind of like if like CrossFit Jesus never found CrossFit, like if he just stayed being Jesus, that's like I think what I am. So that's hence why I've always been the Steel City Savior. So guys, those are Rule of 3 for comedy. I'll do it every week, but those are just my Joker's wild thoughts this week.
Boom. And I think we may reveal our own list of things soon too, which is gonna be pretty funny. The list. You gotta get it. You gotta get it.
Even Raider got involved on that one.
Yes, Raider. Oh man. Before we head out the show, I just gotta say this. You guys don't have to say anything if you don't want to talk about it, but Ryback going to Bellator, even if it's true or not, it may be the dumbest story of the entire year. The fact this guy wants to be CM Punk so bad, it's so ridiculous. Like it's gonna get to the point where we're gonna have the evolution of the big guy. It's getting creepy at this point. Ryback, try to build your own brand. Try to find some authenticity in yourself as a person first beforehand, and try to realize what's best for you right now. Like, okay, you want to do MMA, you want to do this, you want to do that, but bro, I'm trying to relate with this guy, but he keeps making himself look more dumb and dumb and dumb, but more idiotic things he says on his podcast, and now with this thing. But that's my thoughts on the Ryback thing.
I think that we all should kind of start to pay a little bit more attention, because this is how like movies that involve serial killers start. So maybe we should just, I don't know. You know, there's been other people that have legally changed their names, War Machine, and things have happened. And I don't know. It just seems like
brilliant marketing by him to change his name legally to Ryback.
Yeah. I think if he had a better name,
brand, you know,
it could be brilliant marketing. But I think I don't know. I think it's not coming off too well. I think he's coming off as
just like so full of himself that
that's what it is. He's coming off as a sore loser that he thinks that he was bigger than WWE, and what he doesn't realize is he has penis envy for CM Punk because he's always thought that I'm the big guy and I'm better, and CM Punk is just a twig, and blah, 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 blah. And that's really it's a weird. He has some weird fascination with everything CM Punk does, but has followed down to getting a staph infection. Has followed CM Punk's road every single spot. Like this is single white female shit. Like we've seen a million movies about this, guys. There's warning signs, guys. There's warning signs. Pay attention to the signs.
Stupid idiots. Let me say this though. I want to plug something real quick, and then we'll head out of here. Shout out to Ring of Honor. They're gonna have their All-Star Extravaganza pay-per-view this Friday night, so go check that out. Ladder War 6. You have the Young Bucks, the Addiction, and the Briscoes, and I think more City Machine Guns too. So this may be one of the craziest ladder matches you guys are ever going to see. We also have Adam Cole taking on Michael Elgin as well. So they got some good talents there from New Japan that's going to be competing in there as well. Also for TNA, we may have to talk about this next week because we don't even know if they're going to even be on air. Next week, especially with the stuff that's been coming out. So me and Adam will hit that hard next week on next week's show. But here's a little card for Bound for Glory this Sunday. TNA's WrestleMania. All right. So DJZ is gonna be defending his title. His chance will be determined on this week's Impact. They got a 10-minute Bound for Gold gauntlet where it's basically kind of like an elimination match. Whoever wins gets to take on its champion of his choosing. You got Tyrus, Robbie E, some of the guys from the Legionnaires. You guys remember them from NXT? The Legionnaires, the first guys. Yeah, they're in TNA now. Grado, Rockstar Spud, and here we go. Cody Rhodes is in this match as well. So that's going to be pretty cool. We got Maria defending her knockout title against the TNA Hall of Famer Gail Kim. Moose is taking on Mike Bennett. Damian Sandow's taking on Drew Galloway for the inaugural Impact Grand Championship. The Great War. The Decay is taking on the Hardys, and they're going to lose again and again and again.
Because he had a premonition.
He has a premonition.
It's good. I love everything about this. I love it all.
This could be the Great War at Falls Count Anywhere, no holds barred war match for the tag team titles. And then the main event is Bobby Lashley versus EC3 for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. So that's Bound for Glory on Sunday. I'm looking forward to that. The Great War should be phenomenal.
And that's if TNA has the funding to
correct. Yes. Yeah.
Man. And I was just yesterday like praising them, like, you know what, good for Billy Corgan. Give them, like, you know what, it seems like maybe he is doing something right. Give him, let them have a little bit more creative freedom. It seems like it's starting to click. There's actually a positive buzz. Just get rid of that stupid ring and make it a 4-sided ring for crying out loud. But
get rid of Josh Matthews, please.
Well, but you kind of have to have money to put a show on.
Yeah, so. It just seems like, unfortunately, maybe the damage was already done.
This happens. This always happens again and again and again and again. But I hope it works out for them on Sunday. I do want to see the pay-per-view. I'll keep you guys updated if I'm actually covering that show or not. But tonight's Lucha Underground. It's going to be pretty cool. I love Lucha. Lucha's the shit. If you guys haven't go see it, go check it out if you have a chance. Hey, if you DVR it, you're probably done by like 35 minutes, to be perfectly honest with you. So, hey, it goes by pretty fast. So, Eric, good brother. I know this is kind of a last minute thing, but you're kind of like on the little podcasting world tour. I want to thank you coming on again, Mr. Cena. We had a blast as always, man. Tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter and tagmeadate.com.
Well, you can find me at Eric Friedman on Twitter. I'm on Facebook too. Tag Me a Date representing. We're doing a complete revamp of the site, everything from top to bottom and in between. We hear you. We want you to understand that we're working on it, and we're things are going to be bigger, better than ever. We're all over the place. I was just at the Big Time Wrestling show where you might have seen some of pictures with some of like Cody Rhodes or the Ricky Steamboat and guys like that. There's a couple of different things we're going to be at in the near future, so look for us. And make wrestling night your date night.
Yes, the best. The tagline fits it perfectly right there. I do have to say this though. We haven't pointed out on the show, but we talked about it beforehand. Big shout out to Eric with the Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant T-shirt. So this man has good taste when he has that.
That's something you don't see often. So between that and my Sheryl Crow reference, I'm doing it all.
As a fellow musician, I appreciate the Sheryl Crow reference. I thought that was great. Brother Adam, you can follow me on Twitter at AdamDaley13. This man is a hardworking man. I have a lot of respect for him. He's the big brother I never had. You can follow him, like I said, at Daley13. Follow his lovely and talented wife, Samantha Daley, at Lady Next 13. Big shout out to her. She's doing a lot of great stuff today. Check out their show, Wrestling With. It's kind of similar like to ours, where it's unfiltered. There's comedy to it. There's also pop culture talk onto it as well. It's called Wrestling With. You guys can find it on mindandcartage.com. And if you go on and see more stuff, which you probably shouldn't at this point, you're probably tired of both of us. But if you guys want to see us deliver audio, go check us out on Mitchell McMule's show, the PipeBomb with McCool and Company at the New Age Insiders Network. We're going to be taping that today, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So for Adam, thanks for coming on again, my man.
Thank you. Eric, thanks for coming on too, brother. It's always good having you on. We never really get to go do a proper send-off, so, brother, it was good having you on, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
I'm at Twitter at WC Josh Lopez. Thank you guys for checking out the show. Really quick, like I said at the beginning of the show, we won't ask you for money. Who knows? Maybe one of these days we may have our own website or T-shirt store or something. Who knows?
T-shirts. I have so many slogans. I have so many catchphrases for shirts. I know no one would buy them, but I am going to get shirts for Sam because I know you guys would buy Sam shirts.
Yes. Yeah, that's going to go off the racks as quickly as possible. But I'll say this, though. Thank you guys for the support, as always. All we ever ask is leave an honest feedback of the show, where it's on here on YouTube or on iTunes. Subscribe to the podcast if you want to listen to the audio version of the show. Tell a friend about it. If you like what we're doing, please check out the show, and we appreciate your support. It's cool that you guys like to take some time out of your day to listen to us ramble on about a business that we all love and that we don't take for granted. So for Adam and for Brother Michael, a.k.a. Eric Freeman, I am Josh Lopez. Thank you guys so much for checking out today's podcast, and we'll be back next week. And adios. Delete.